I was drafted in Sweden in 1946, and I was in the service for a year and a half, and happened to come home Christmas time and found out that my grandmother had gotten a Christmas card from America from her brother that she hadn't seen since 1892. And I took the address and I took the name down and sent him a letter. And he wrote me back and said that he hasn't got any money and he couldn't help me, but he said, I have a relation, a lady who is a lawyer, and she may like to help you. And sure enough, she did.
Where he came from in Sweden was a pretty poor area. Not a lot of people leave Landskrona. Or if you do, you go 30 or 40 miles northwest, east, or south, and that's about it. You pretty much stay in the area. Where he chose to come to the U.S. on his own. Couldn't speak any English, no money, just sort of a dream, because this was the place everybody wanted to come to.
I was looking for a job, and I found out that there was a Swedish contractor that was building a building over to University of Washington. And I asked him if there was any job at all in the construction, and he said, no, everything is down because of the weather. I said, no, I think you have a job for me. No, he says, I don't. Everything is down. I said, no, I think you got a job. I think you need that building cleaned up. It's about a 4-story building. I think you need it cleaned up. And he says, hell, you don't want to do that. I said, yes, I sure as hell will.
Well, he was in construction for 48 years, had his own company, Bert Lundh Construction. So from that, it was natural when the building came up with the school district, he was able to look and see what was available, what needed to be done, and he's one of those people that instead of going through and having all of the other individuals say, well, you need to do this, or structurally it needs to do that, he was capable of being able to see all of it and immediately said, well, we need to change this, we'll need to put in an elevator for this. This is a great location for that, and he's one of those people that could figure it all in his head. So it was a lot of fun. He'd come home and talk about, they're talking about this price tag, but I don't think they need that. They should be able to do this. I'm sure I can explain to them that they don't need that. It'll be just as good and it'll be half the price. And when they got started, I was one of those because I was working construction at that time as well as at the Porcelain Gallery. I was in swinging a hammer and pushing a broom and digging and everything else that was needed, so sort of a family affair.
Well, I was part of the first group basically, and I have to give the Norwegians a lot of credit because they were just wonderful when it come to organizing this whole thing. But there was one man that really stood out, and that was Tryg Jørgensen. He was just an incredible guy, and I've always liked to follow his ideas and so forth because he was an outstanding person.
The museum has been so important to my father because it's a way of giving back, and it's also a way to highlight what his heritage is.
I've been involved in quite a bit since the museum. Swedish Club, I was president for 3 years. I've been president for 3 years with the Northwest Kidney Center. And the reason I went into the Northwest Kidney Center is that we have to give something back to America. We can't just, it's very good to work for everything Scandinavian, but there comes a time when we have to look beyond that and say, look, we gotta give something back.
Bert has really set an example for so many of us that it's important to support our broader community. It's important to support the Scandinavian community and to recognize and celebrate our culture. The Nordic Heritage Museum is really a surprising place, and it's a place that produces really impressive exhibits. It brings great exhibits here from the Nordic countries and other places in the United States, and it maintains a collection of very important objects that people brought with them when they came from the Nordic countries. It's a very engaging place and a place where there's always something to learn.
The interesting thing is that we really, all of us pulled together just to show that we are a community that can do things.
The museum is a living, active, vital community center as well as a museum. We have dozens and dozens of programs for family, everything from children's activities at Viking Days and Yule Fest to our school tour program to a preschool reading program. One of the major goals the museum has is to pass Nordic heritage on from one generation to another, and we couldn't possibly do that without our family and children's programs.
When I think of Bert, he started out helping getting this building into something that could be used as a museum. Then, of course, he served as chairman of the board and put together good leadership within the organization to help sustain its future. One of my excitements about the museum, and one of the reasons I have continued to be involved, is number one, for the future. I hope that my grandchildren will be able to see the Danish story here and figure out how their great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, how he came to America and why he came and what happened when he got here. I also enjoy the social activities that go on here, the exhibitions. I love to come and see the various art pieces. And of course, I always like to eat.
Probably one of the closest things to heart for me is the food. Lots of nice events, and you eat yourself silly, so it's a lot of fun. Well, when you look at the current museum and how excited people are when they visit the one we have now, the idea that we could be 2 or 3 times larger, be much more interactive. The location is amazing. It's going to be a phenomenal place. And I think that even though the museum right now is one of the world's top museums, especially for a Scandinavian museum, the world-class level is going to go up dramatically with this new one, and I think this is going to be an amazing thing for Seattle as well as the world.
Bert Lundh has established a tradition of service and support for the museum. It's very important that all of us in the room stand up and be counted as in following his tradition.
The key to the museum and to get the money that we really need is that we have to make the old slogan correct. If you don't ask, you won't get. But you also have to tell the story about the museum and what it's going to be after we get into the new building. I have to say that this thing is something special.